This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Welcome to Know the Name, Know the Genius in You, where in a single moment you can recognize your brilliance and change your life. This is a transformational hour that covers an array of topics that demonstrate how individuals use their native talents, as shown in their name, to look at the ordinary in extraordinary ways. Albert Einstein once said that everybody's a genius. Why would one of the smartest people on the planet declare that everyone is a genius unless he knew that to be true? I'm your host, Sharon Lynn Wyatt, creator of Namology Science and author of Know the Name, Know the Person. And in each weekly show, you'll hear the fascinating ways other people discovered the genius in them and what they were able to accomplish. At the end of each show, you'll hear clues on how you can recognize your own innate genius. So how does someone express their creative talents, and how does someone share those gifts with others in such a way that all benefit? Our expert tonight is Mark Juarez, who has developed his genius in the area of developing companies where the employees are happy to be there and the companies do incredibly well. Published writer, designer, teacher, certified masseuse, and avid cyclist, Mark established the Happy Company in 1992 with his personal savings of $22,000. Within 3 years, the company was earning $20 million and garnering the number 5 slot on the top 10 companies list for Northern California. It rose to the number 2 position on the top 10 fastest growing companies list in the Bay Area in 1996. Happy Massager, his flagship product, was the world's best-selling massage tool. Through the Happy Company, Juarez has invented and managed the development cycle of more than 100 products, trademarks, and copyrights. The inspiration behind his products was to introduce what he calls the caring touch to the world, and that touch extended him into the nonprofit sector. Well known for his ability to successfully innovate products with character, Juarez is living proof of 2 concepts. First, that it's possible to achieve the ultimate balance between profitability, business management, and social responsibility. The second, that there is no such thing as an impossible dream. Juarez overcame dyslexia and a disadvantaged upbringing with a strong belief that work is love made visible, and integrity comes before profits, ethics, which he incorporates into his company and everyday living. Through his travels, he's experienced firsthand the power of pursuing a dream that benefits others and the value of sincere gratitude. This became his greatest motivation to continually create and sustain a healthy and happy work environment in which everyone can work collaboratively together to succeed and thrive. Juarez is a regular guest teacher at prestigious universities such as Stanford, USC, Loyola Marymount, and San Francisco State University. He is also an internationally acclaimed public speaker to businesses and nonprofit associations worldwide. Juarez and his products have been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Time Magazine, and many, many others. Okay? And the other media outlets, I mean, they're just numerous, like the Atlantic Journal and the San Francisco Chronicle. I mean, there's just so many. Juarez recently published Charlie's Thinking Cheese to inspire community projects, healthier living styles, and cross-generational dialogues. And we'll talk about his current products as we get into this. Welcome to Know the Name, Know the Genius in You radio show, Mark.
Thank you so much.
It's so nice to have you here. First thing we want to know is, how did you discover your ability to create happy companies?
I'm so sorry. Can you ask the question again? How
Yes.
did I
Discover your ability to create happy companies? I mean, most of us just go after a dream, and if it gets happy, we're lucky, but that's not one of our goals. But that was really one of your goals. So how did you go about doing that the very first time around?
Well, when I was young, and I started my first company when I was 11 years old. And by 12, I had a staff, and I was wondering what could I do with the staff. The first job I did was fixing up a house for my friend's grandmother, and I wanted to, but she had no money, and I really wanted to try to do it. As I started doing it, all my friends joined me, and I realized when I created a really happy atmosphere, it made a big difference. As I got a little bit older, I started. I'd worked on these jobs, but I decided I wanted to travel, and through the travelers, I recognized that I was searching for the meaning of life. Why do we work? What really motivates us? And what I realized is we don't work for a paycheck, or people that do. It's really sad. But when you have a purpose, when you have something that is much more meaning in your life, it makes a huge, huge difference. And I wanted to create a work environment where there was just that, where we could, where people had a purpose. And I wanted to find for each person that worked for me what that unique skill, what that unique purpose was. And once I did, people were fired up. They wanted to work, and they were really, really excited. And so that's kind of how I came to that.
So how do you find within each person what their purpose is? I mean, I think there's so many employers out there that they can say, okay, we want to know this person's unique purpose, but we would have no idea even how to go about finding it for them if they didn't know. How would you do that?
I observed them. I looked at, I watched the things that they did well. And the moment I started complimenting them, as an example, my assistant had, who was really good at writing, but we were looking for an artist, and I was kind of drawing happy. And she's like, "Oh my God, you're retarded. Let me draw it for you." And she started drawing it. And I was like, "Oh my God, that's amazing." And that's kind of how it started. And with each person, I started to find what were their unique skills. What could they do that so much better than everybody else? And it was pretty easy to find when I was observing them.
What did you find really motivates people, since you said it wasn't money? So what did you find is the motivator?
I don't believe, you're right, money is not a motivator. There's a lot of science on that. And I don't believe that people work for money. They work for a sense of purpose. And when you find what that purpose is, it's so much more powerful. And that's, it's really, again, going back to finding people's purpose in life.
Wow, what a gift to even help somebody find their purpose in life. Now, Mark, you know that at the beginning of all my shows, I always like to do everybody's name. Are you ready for yours?
I am, yes.
Okay, so your name indicates that you have a great imagination. You have fairness issues. You want the world to be fair, that you can stand up for yourself a lot easier than you can stand up for somebody else, because it's very important for you to make sure that everybody's being treated fairly, and yet you let a lot of stuff go off, slide off your back because you say it's not that important, or you could choke when you're going to stand up for your own fairness issues, and it's something that you've had to learn over time. And your name also indicates that you're a great provider. So I love this story that you turned $22,000 into $20 million in 3 years, because it so goes along with your name. Your name says, in other words, that you can make money easily. You're learning how not to let others take advantage of you. And so you're learning how to be a manifester and to manipulate things around to get what you want. And manipulate is not a nasty word in this case. It's literally, how do you make or create that which you're looking for and that you want. Your name also says that you're a natural leader. And when you lead, everybody benefits. And that you're great at manifesting when you set your goals. And your name also indicates that you're a bit of a workaholic, and that you just want to keep working once you get an idea, and that you're driven until it's finished, and then you want to just really rest for a while before you get all fired up on the next idea. So how do you think that fits you?
That fits really well, actually, very well. I'm quite surprised. And it's interesting. One of the things when I started the company, I recognized what's worse than having bad credit is having no credit. And when I went to the banks, nobody would consider lending me money. I had no history. I'd been traveling for 10 years. Um, so it really kind of goes with what you're saying. And I had to be very creative and very sort of, yeah. So yes, everything you said, actually, I didn't mean to just focus on one of those, but yes, you're absolutely right.
Well, when did you know, like at the very beginning, you started so early, with the house and stuff, but when did you know that you want to create a company and keep it going and provide jobs for others, which I happen to think is one of the greatest gifts we can give somebody, is to provide the opportunity of employment so that they can feel their own sort of self-worth as they're earning their own income. And I just think that's the greatest gift we can give. And so when did you know that you wanted to build a kind of company like this?
When I first started working, which was when I kind of going back to when I was 11 years old, 12 years old, by the age of 12, when we were fixing my friend's grandmother's house and we were painting the house, we had music, we had we had so much fun doing it. And I realized at that point, you've got to make work fun. And there were so many people benefiting from it. Originally, everyone thought my friend's grandmother was crazy. What was she doing having a lot of young, I was 12 years old. What was she doing having a 12-year-old work on her house? They thought we were so incapable. However, by the time we finished her house, we put a new roof on. I painted the house. I put the roof on by myself. By that point, all my friends in the neighborhood wanted to join. And so we painted the house, we put new windows in, we redid the garden, and we had so much fun doing it. It didn't feel like work. And she was just so ecstatic. It completely changed her life. And all the naysayers who were coming and saying, "Are you crazy having this young boy work on your house?" Were lining up, coming and saying, "Well, you do our house next." And my approach was that I did the work, and I was like, I didn't want to be paid until they were completely satisfied. And I realized that was a great approach. And everybody was so excited. But it started with that. And then my father thought it wasn't a great idea that I run my own business, that I should work for some other people and get a better sense of what it was like to work for others. I would learn much more about business this way. And he was right. He was very wise. But it was through those jobs, through observing people, and then through traveling even more so. I met all these other travelers who just seemed a little more enlightened and asked, why do we work? What do we live for? What is, a lot of people don't like their jobs. And I thought that was so sad. And that's when I started to really observe the differences between people that love their work and people that don't like their work. And the people that love their work.
That's a great idea. We're going to continue that after the break because we need to take a break. Stay tuned to Know the Name, Know the Genius in You, which can also be heard on knowthename.com. After the break, we'll find out how Mark keeps his happy company happy.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell? The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Welcome back. I'm Sharon Lynn Wyeth, and you're listening to Know the Name, Know the Genius in You, which is being heard on xzbn.net and knowthename.com. Our guest tonight is Mark Juarez, and whose website is thehappycompany.com. Okay, we were talking about when you were 12 and you were noticing how happy everybody was working on your grandma's house. You know, when you were 12, were you in 6th grade or 7th grade? Because that's about that age when people are 12.
I was in the 7th grade, or going from the 6th to the 7th. It was in the summer of
6th and 7th?
I just graduated from 6th. Yeah, I just graduated from 6th grade, and I was about to start the 7th grade.
And you know, older cultures used to say that by 13 you're an adult. So you were just kind of going in along that line, and by 13 you really were acting like an adult. Okay, so you started, you got your friends involved. There's always stumbling blocks. Along the way, what were your stumbling blocks and how did you overcome them?
Well, you know, maybe to add a little bit more to this, when I was in school, I was dyslexic. I had ADHD. I couldn't read very well. And, you know, I found work. I found satisfaction in work. And when I was in school, they actually wanted to put me in a class for retarded children. And I began to really question, like, wait a moment, am I retarded? You know, and I remember looking at myself in the mirror and looking and observing myself and thought, okay, I can't read and I can't write very well, but was I really retarded? And it was through work that I got a sense of that I felt good. And it gave me a sense of purpose, and it gave me a sense that I was worth something. And when I worked with others, and I complimented them, like, oh my God, you know, this looks great what you did, and started doing this, I realized how different that was from going to school. And I had no interest in going to school. My father, who was a huge advocate of education, he worked for UC Berkeley, and the University of Berkeley, and he was just, it was disappointing to him that I wasn't going to school, but that was one of my stumbling blocks in the beginning. And you know, it's funny. There's always challenges in work. When I had the Happy Company, one of the things we learned fairly young, fairly early on, was that when things would go wrong, we could either get frustrated and angry, and I realized that we wouldn't accomplish anything with that. Or we could look at everything that went wrong as an opportunity to learn and to make something better from it. And when I started to take that approach, it was completely different. In fact, I remember there was a woman that came to work with us, and she had 2 PhDs. She was a scientist, and we were developing a product that would typically take 6 months at least to do in cosmetic. And we brought her in because she had the science background that we were seeking. And I remember I told her what I wanted to do, and she looked at us like, "You're crazy. That's impossible. There's no way you could do this." And I'm like, "I know, but we're going to do it anyway. Are you on board, or are you going to pass?" And she said, "You're crazy," and kept insisting this. And I kept on saying, "I know, but I know we can do it. And if you would help, I would love it. I want you to work for us." And she said, "No, you're crazy." She got out. She walked out of our building. She got into her car, which I could clearly see right outside my office window. Put her key in, got in the car, and then she turned off the car, got out of the car, walked back in, and again said, "You're really crazy." And I'm like, "I know. So are you on?" And she said, "I'm on." And I said, "Great, we're going to do it." And she said it was the craziest 6 weeks she'd ever experienced in her entire life, but we pulled it off. We worked 24/7. We worked, just I mean, insanely long hours, and we pulled off the impossible. And it was fun. And by the end, she said, again, it was the most exciting 6 weeks she had ever experienced. Later, I went to the doctors and they thought I had cancer, and I was like, "Oh my God!" But they weren't certain. They said, "Come back in 3 weeks for testing." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I want it right away. I'm like, what do you mean wait 3 weeks? I want to know right now, and I want to come up with a plan for that." And they said no. And then I walked to the doctor's office and I got this idea. I knew an institute that really had a lot of success with cancer. And I thought, I'm going to go there. I'm going to do everything they said. And one of the things they said was that, so I did. I signed up, and they said that it was impossible. There's no openings. And I said, "Look, I don't care if I have to sleep in my car. I'm coming." And they said, "No, there's a long waiting list." But I was really insistent, and I got in. I literally, they had called me on Saturday, or I called them on Saturday, right before the opening was, and they said, "Oh my gosh, there was just a cancellation, and we close in 10 minutes. If you can come here tomorrow morning, you're in." And I'm like, "I'll do it." I drove all night. I was there, and anyway, the first thing they said was that if you have an illness like cancer, not to think of it as a challenge, but think of it as an opportunity. And I thought, that's crazy. Cancer is not an opportunity. But I made an agreement to myself that I would do everything they said they would do. So I made it an opportunity. And anyway, they went through that week, went back to the doctors 2 weeks later, and I envisioned that the doctor was going to say, "Oh God, we have no idea why we thought you had cancer, but you're okay." And that's exactly what happened. And now I'm just like so fired up. And I'm driving home, and people cut me off, and I'm like, "Hey, that's okay." And I'm usually a pretty aggressive driver. We usually wouldn't just say, "Oh, that's okay." But I was ecstatic. And when I got back to the office, my operations director was going crazy, and she said, "Mark, the our biggest customer is it's a disaster. You said we should let them ship it the way they wanted, and we did, and everything arrived to them broken because they didn't follow our protocol." And I'm like, "Cindy, everything's an opportunity." And she's like, "Boss, are you crazy? You're drinking too much green stuff. There's nothing here that's an opportunity. This is like horrible news." And I'm like, "But we could fix this." And I called everybody in the company, and I'm like, "You guys, what do you think? Can we pull this off? We've got a week to get them product, which normally takes 6 or 8 weeks." And they said, "We could do it." And she's like, "No, you guys, it's impossible." But we pulled it off. And I called our factory because we always order 10% over in materials. And I'm like, "How much material do we have?" And they're like, "We've got a lot." And I'm like, "Is there any way we can get this made in 3 or 4 days and ship it to them we'll air freight it to them?" And they said, "We'll do this." And we pulled it off. And she couldn't believe it. They literally got it the day that they were launching this new product. And everything was so close, but we pulled it off. We went to visit this company two months later, and we apologized for the things that had gone wrong. And they looked at us really funny, and they said, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And they said, we went through all of our emails, we went through everything, and we realized it was totally our mistake. And you never once came to us and explained that to us. You always worked with us. And I said, well, we're partners. Of course we'd work with you. We wouldn't do it any other way. Well, the crazy thing was that they were so excited that they gave us an order that was, they wanted us to become to do all their OEM business. That was a huge, huge order. It was worth over $400,000. Now, the cost to get them this order to us was $33,000, which we completely absorbed. That $33,000 was, now we were getting an order that was worth over $400,000. And my operations director we just looked at each other in complete awe. We had lunch with the president of this company. This is a massive company. We were just tiny compared to them. And they wanted us, anyway, it turned out to be one of the most amazing opportunities. And so we have something in our company which we called our MAP. It was our mission. It was what we aspired to as a company. It was an acronym, and it was our guiding principles. And at that point, before that, we had 7 guiding principles. We just added an 8th guiding principle, that everything in life was an opportunity. And our other guiding principles were things like integrity before profit. We believed that work was love made visible, that we were unstoppable. So when they came to us and said, when she said, we only have a week to make this product and get it to them, everybody in our company was like, of course, we're unstoppable. We'll find a way to do this. And that we were everything we did was environmentally friendly, and those are some of our guiding principles. And that's how we lived. And when you have guiding principles like that, and you live them completely, again, it just gave everybody in our company a sense of purpose, a sense of it's fun to come to work. We believed in something much higher. And
so what I'm hearing your company did was you were given a great challenge, which pulled everybody together. So everybody put forth their best effort and made the impossible possible. So you had a common goal.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And when you do that, it just fired everybody up. And that's just one example of so many. We loved it. And everybody in the company, customer service to us was everything. And when we could find outrageous ways to provide the most extraordinary customer service, we got really excited. And so those are just a few of so many examples we have of how you absolutely identified it perfectly. Yes.
Okay, so what I want to know next, and we don't have a lot of time, so we've got about 1.5 minutes to answer this, and that is, weren't you a bit scared to begin working for yourself because there's no safety cushion, especially if you're investing your entire savings into a project? Working for yourself, did that create new challenges that was harder than working for somebody else?
It's funny. I never thought of that. All I thought about was the end result. And when I started the Happy Company, I discovered the massager because my knees went out. And then I wanted to, I wanted to share with the world the importance of this massager, the importance of carrying touch. That's all I thought about. And how can I change people's lives with our product? It's funny. The Happy Massager, a lot of people mistaked the name for the Happy Messenger. And we felt that with every massager that we made, we were putting a message in, a message for what we stood for. We wanted to change people's lives. And, people copied us, but nobody could make the massager like we did because nobody would put the care and the pride that we put into it.
I love hearing that, and I'll tell you why. And it's because my mother's food is marvelous. Oh my gosh, she's such a wonderful cook. And we asked her, why is her food so good when it's the same recipe as somebody else? And she said, because I add the ingredient of love while I'm making it. Okay, we need to take another break. Stay tuned to Know the Name, Know the Genius in You. This show's dedicated to taking significant risks and the keys to do so safely. After the break, we'll find out some of the different ways that Mark Juarez has assisted his people.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Welcome back. I'm Sharon Lynn Wyeth, and you're listening to Know the Name, Know the Genius in You. Our guest tonight is Mark Juarez, who can be reached via his website, www.thehappycompany.com. Okay, Mark, once you started making real money, did people expect more of you than they did before when you were small?
Well, I started making real money, I guess, right away, which is kind of interesting. When I first started the company, I had no idea what I was doing. I went to 30 small boutiques close to where I was living. I was living in San Francisco. And so there's a lot of shops. I went to the ones really small shops that I really loved, and said, I have this massager. I have no idea how to sell it to a shop like yours. I'm not here to sell you, but I'm wondering if you would give me some advice on how I might sell this to a store like yours, because I always loved your store. Well, what I found is that every company that I went to, as they sort of described it to me, they ended up selling themselves. They ended up, they got so excited about it that they were like, oh my gosh, I want to buy this. I'm like, really? And what was amazing was I went to 30 shops and all 30 bought. And my friends who understood sales a little bit better said, don't get discouraged. You might sell 1 out of 3 if you're lucky, but most likely you're going to sell maybe 1 out of 10. And I thought, okay, if I go to 30 shops, that means I would sell 3. And if it was only 1 out of 10, but I sold all 30, and I was amazed. But the more interesting thing was that they bought what they thought was a 6-week supply of massagers. And I didn't realize this, but in the kind of shop products we're doing, it's called open to buy, or in larger companies, it's called open to buy. So typically they would buy a 6-week supply because they would order, 8 times through the year. And every shop that bought it sold out in a day or a day and a half, because they would massage people, they would show it off. And I'm like, oh my gosh. And they explained to me how good that was. So then my mother suggested, why don't you take it to a big shop like Nordstrom's? And I thought, that's a great idea. So I took it to Nordstrom's, and I had no idea, again, where to do it in Nordstrom's. And I was walking around Nordstrom's, and this guy stopped me, or at the cosmetic counter. He said, you look completely lost. And I said, I am. I'm trying to figure out where I might sell a massager like this in your store. And he thought about it for a moment, and he said, in cosmetics. And I'm like, of course, that makes the most sense. And as I was observing the cosmetics, they were they're always trying to upsell. They're always trying to say, when you are buying something, they're like, hey, would you like to try our new lipstick or lip balm or eyeshadow or something? And I said, if you massaged people, they would feel much more comfortable. And as they feel more comfortable, they actually might buy more. And they said, really? Well, let's try it. So we did. And sure enough, people did. And suddenly, everybody in the cosmetic counter was like, oh my gosh, we got to have this. So they marched me to the buying office and explained what had happened. And the buyer was like, well, it's a long, lengthy process to buy products that usually take 6 months. And all the salespeople said, no, we want this like today. Well, before I knew it, she actually made an exception and they bought it. And it was right before Christmas, or right after Thanksgiving, rather, Black Friday. And she said, if you could get me 600, we'll give it a test in our San Francisco store. And I'm like, okay. And this was like on a Monday afternoon. I called up to my mother, who was helping me with this, and said, what are you doing tonight? And she's like, I'm not doing anything. And I said, well, I just got an order from Nordstrom's. It was a great idea. Do you think you could help me? And she said, okay. And she said, how many do you have to make? And I said, 600. And she's like, are you crazy? That would take a long time. And I'm like, but Mom, we could figure this out. You mentioned that you have a friend that just lost his job and that he was part of a group of people over 40 looking for work. Maybe you can call him and maybe he can ask people in his group and maybe we could figure out how to put together a work party. And she's like, okay, I'll try that. And she did. And suddenly, before we knew it, he brought a bunch of people. And I brought pizza and beer, and I made it fun to work there. And I soon turned her living room and dining room and back spare bedroom into a production. And we got it done that night. And we had so much fun doing it. We played music, and my mother's like, this is fun. And it's so we got it all done. I got it to Nordstrom.
And everybody got paid.
Amazing. And everybody got paid.
Okay.
And before we knew it, we got it in Nordstrom's, and she had bought 600 thinking that was going to last through Christmas. We sold out in a day and a half, and she couldn't believe it, the buyer at Nordstrom's. And before we knew it, we got an order. She wanted to put it in 4 stores, and she ordered 1,200 for the next weekend, and we sold out of that in a day and a half. And before we knew it, we had so many orders, and I never stopped making at that point. All the people that came to help, I said, you guys, do you want to like keep working? And they're like, yes. And before we knew it, we were in full production. My mother finally said, look, you've got to find a new place because you've taken over my entire house. My living room, my dining room, my spare bedroom, my garage. This is like you're not coming into my kitchen in my bedroom or bathroom. And I'm like, okay, we'll figure out something. And so I rented a small warehouse, and we were going like crazy. And so I've got a pretty big staff, and we're hiring people as fast as we can. And all the people that were like over 40 that I'd hired, they were great because they all had great business experience, and soon they were helping me build the company up pretty quickly. And now we're doing pretty well. And I thought, okay, Christmas is over. Maybe things are going to slow down in January. But it turns out that this was the best-selling item that Nordstrom's had ever seen in January. And because everybody who got it for Christmas were coming back to Nordstrom's and saying, we want to buy more of these? And their friends. And so it was doing very, very well. And so we were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And we were voted the best-selling item at Nordstrom's had seen. So then we got into the Body Shop, and the same success. Body Shop was doing so well with it. And the founder of Body Shop, Anita Roddick, had said, allowed us to sell it in franchise stores, but she wouldn't allow it in the corporate store. Well, we got into all the franchises almost immediately because our success, we were doing so well with it at Nordstrom's. And before we knew it, this was now right before Valentine's Day, and there was a television show. And in the television show, they were interviewing this woman who had just written this book on how to bring love back into your marriage. And in the book, she had mentioned the benefits of massage. And John said, and she was, showing how to do massage and was massaging John. And he sort of said, my wife, she massages me, and after 2 minutes, she said her hands are tired. And she said, oh, I just found the perfect product, this little wooden happy massager. I think I bought it at Body Shop. And she started massaging him. Well, before she knew it, he's like, "Oh my gosh, that's amazing! Where did you get that?" And she put it back in her purse because she wanted to talk about her book. But as she's talking to Lisa, John is just sitting there, kind of dumbfounded, and he's like pointing to his back, and he's saying, "Oh my gosh, that was like the most amazing massage ever." And I kept on asking her, where did you get this? And it was maybe only 45 seconds of actual, airtime and being shown, but those 45 seconds, and just his expression was so priceless that it soon got really popular. And we didn't know what to expect. Somebody had called us and told us about it. And we were in this tiny, tiny office, 8 of us working. And we were like, oh my gosh, somebody had phoned us and told us about this. And we were like, what's going to happen next? And suddenly our fax machine went crazy. And we're like, oh my God, what's wrong with the fax machine? It kept spitting out this order from the body shop, like just constantly. And we're like, what's going on? And then my assistant looked at it and she said, wait, Mark, every order is different. It's not all from one body shop. They're all from different body shops. And they're not small orders. Because Body Shop was ordering originally 24, 48, maybe 60 if it was a good order. But these orders were like 600, 800. And we're like, oh my gosh. And soon we realized this is huge. Like we were not going to be able to, how could we make so many orders? And we all had to pull together and come up with a plan. And we realized our warehouse wasn't big enough. And we got this idea, what if everybody went home and made it? Like they can make it in their living room. And we could buy a van and we could deliver all the pieces. And at first everyone was like, well, no, we like coming to work. But I'm like, it's cold in the warehouse and we don't have enough room. And one girl said, well, could I come to work in my pajamas? And I'm like, yeah. And another woman said, well, can my grandmother help? And we're like, of course. And soon everybody got really excited about working at home. And before we knew it, we had to come up with a plan how to increase our production by 10 times and in 3 days. And we worked like crazy. And I called the wood manufacturer who was manufacturing all the wood for us. And at first, he didn't even want to work with me. He was like we only work with large companies, or we work through trading companies. And I'm like, I don't want to go to a trading company. I want to work with you directly. And he said, no, I won't do it. But I was so persistent, he finally agreed. Well, when I called him and told him that we wanted to increase our order by 10 times, and we wanted to get it right away, he was so surprised. He was like, really? And I explained to him everything that had happened, and he agreed. Well, and shortly after that, we became his largest customer.
And so he was working with a large company. He just didn't realize it at the time.
I just didn't realize it at the time. Yeah.
Okay, I want to break in for just a minute because you were honored by Inc. magazine as the Entrepreneur of the Year for social responsibility and Business of the Year in California. Did that award make a difference in what you did or how you did it? And again, we only have about 2 minutes or less than that to tell me.
It didn't. It kind of identified to us, I had nothing to measure it against. This was the largest company I worked at, and I'm running it. And so we really didn't, those awards didn't really do anything for us. What did happen, and maybe a kind of interesting story, was that we began to question, are we doing everything right? And so I thought I should bring people that were more experienced than I was. So we brought the CFO from Levi Strauss. We hired the HR director from IBM. And they walked around our company for 2 days trying to figure out how we accomplished what we did. And they came to us and they said, you did everything. He compared us to being in the Indianapolis 500 race, and that we were winning the race, but we were driving a 67 Nova. Now, I love the movie The Love Bug, and I was trying to, but I'm like, I'm guessing what you mean by this is we're doing everything wrong. And he said, you're doing everything wrong.
Okay, hold that thought. Hold that thought. I want to know about that when we come back because we need to take another break. Stay tuned to Know the Name,
Okay.
Know the Genius in You. This show is dedicated to taking significant risks and keys to do it safely. After the break, we'll find out more about Mark Juarez and the Happy Company.
The Earth is under ever-increasing pressure from untenable lifestyles and growing populations. Yet, viable answers seem in short supply. What if I told you there's an ancient form that can empower you to take charge of your life? What if your entire family could be enfolded and supported by life itself, finding safe passage through challenging times? I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Art School with great news, an upcoming series of leading-edge online affordable classes based in an ancient form of shamanism easily learned and used by your entire family. Galactic Shamanism, Art of the Ancients, Key to Tomorrow are a series of online adult and children's lessons instructing your entire family on natural law, how to cooperate with and be supported by the powers of the universe. Visit findyourpathhome.com to find these unique and powerful classes.
This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi, you can still listen to the X-Zone Radio Show with Rob McConnell, The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, X-1, Dimension X, Space Patrol, and every minute of the X-Zone Broadcast Network by calling 213-401-0080, courtesy of Audio Now. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and it's free if you have unlimited minutes. Call 213-401-0080 to listen on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Remember 213-401-0080 for the best of the paranormal, parapsychology, and sci-fi radio programming anywhere, 24/7, 365.
Welcome back. I'm Sharon Lynn Wyeth, and you're listening to Know the Name, Know the Genius in You. Our guest tonight is Mark Juarez, whose website, thehappycompany.com, and he's taken his skills to a level where he's able to create large, highly profitable companies with happy employees that serve others gleefully and purposefully. Mark assists others who succeed with their ideas. Now, right before the break, we were talking about how you brought in all these experts and they said you're doing everything wrong, but you're winning the race. Now, how is that even possible? Did those experts really know what they were doing? Tell us that about this.
So this goes back to people having purpose. This goes back to people having passion about what they do. And what they were saying was, we didn't hire the right people. They didn't have the skills that were required to do their job, that they didn't have the education that they should have had to do their job, and that they should not have been able to do the work that they were assigned to do. But I have this belief, because that's where I came from. I never did well in school, but when you have a passion to do something, it's unbelievable what you can accomplish. And when you work with a group of people where everybody, we weren't just a company, we were a community. We were so fired up. And to us, nothing was going to stop us. And so the people, I couldn't afford to hire really high caliber people. Um, but instead, I hired people that had passion and that believed they could do anything. And what I found was sometimes when you don't know what you can't do, you could be convinced to you could do anything. And that's what we did. And
That's really inspiring. That's very inspiring. I mean, I'm thinking about kids in the classroom and how many teachers listen to this program and how many kids are distraught because they're not successful in math or science or passing their civics test. Or, I mean, I'm thinking about the 12-year-olds as you started and how discouraging it is for them. And I'm thinking, how do we bring passion back to doing it so they can figure it out even if they don't know the proper steps? Like, can they figure out the math problem even if they don't know all the formulas? Can they reason it? How would we bring that back? I mean, and I'm thinking about that and thinking how you've helped create so many companies or helped other companies to do what you're doing. It amazes me that in 2012, you put your highly successful company on hiatus so that you could regroup and plan your next wave of inventions. And you're now in the process of relaunching the Happy Company. So what are you going to do this time that's different than you did the last time? Do you have a new purpose, a new mission? I mean, what's different?
what's interesting was, I only knew the Happy Company because that's what I did. And companies I've worked for, companies that I've created, I didn't know what it was like in other companies. And when we started to do research, I was surprised to find that 70% of companies, the employees are not happy. And I thought that was really sad. I couldn't imagine. We spend 52% of our time working. To be someplace where you're spending more than half of your time and to be unhappy is really sad. And I realized that it's not hard to create a happy company. And that we started then looking at what there are companies out there that help companies become happy. But when we looked at their methodology, it seemed kind of contrived. It didn't seem real. And there's a spirit, and they seem to have, well, maybe some people are doing it right, but the ones I saw, they seem to have missed it. And so as we were starting this new company, we thought, I want to go out there and share our secrets, our methodology, our techniques with other companies. And when you have engaged employees, when you have companies that are excited, the statistics are suggesting that they're way more productive, they make more sales, the products are so much better as it was in our company, that everybody benefits. The employer, the employees, and the customers. It's a win-win for everybody. And most things that you do in companies, what benefits one is usually at the cost of the other. It's either the employer that benefits or the employee or the customer. But it's rare that you could do something that all three benefit. And this is. And everything that we have come up with is a win for everybody.
Okay, so what compels you to teach and share with other companies since you've got such a good thing going and you can keep it all to yourself? So why are you out there trying to share it everywhere?
Because, I guess I look back, I feel like I'm on a mission. I feel driven that there's something so exciting to share this with everybody, because I would love to change the idea that instead of 70% of the people being unhappy at work, if we could change it, that we're at least 70% of the people were happy at work, or ideally everyone could be happy at work, we could change the world. And it's when you have something good, you want to share it. It just seems the right way of doing it. And
okay, so you want to change the world. So my question for you is, your techniques and philosophy definitely work in the United States. Have you tried and tested the same things overseas? Do your strategies work worldwide?
They do. It's a great question. Yes, but we modify them. As an example, When we had overtime in the Happy Company, one of the things I never wanted to do was to have forced overtime. When we got a big order, I went out to the floor and I said, guys, we got this amazing order and it's huge, but they want it right away. What do you think? Can we pull this off? And everybody in the company volunteered to work overtime. And I'm like, seriously? Oh my gosh. So I was so moved by this. We went out and we bought pizza, we got beer, we turned on the music, and we turned it into a party. And everybody said, oh my gosh, if this is what overtime is about, count me in. This is really great. And a side note on that, we also had a thing on Monday mornings where everybody in our company met, and every department was set up as if it was its own department, as if it was its own kind of business. By this, we could kind of measure the success of each company. And on Mondays was an opportunity to brag about how well each department was doing. Well, it was also a time, if you had a challenge, you could bring it up. And so our CFO, Bill, he had said, who joined us in our in the party as well, and he had so much fun. But he said, gosh, when I went home that night, my wife was a little upset with me. And we're like, really, Bill, why? And she said, well, she thinks I'm having an affair. And we're like, he said, I came home and I had beer in my breath and pizza all over my shirt and I was so happy. And she thought, you're not working. You must be out. You must be seeing another woman. And he said, no, seriously, I was at work. And so we thought, what if we could invite our family and friends and to these parties. And everyone said, oh my God, that'd be great. And so it also became an opportunity to find the best workers, because when people invited their friends, they're like, dude, this is where you work. Like, this is fun. And so it became this amazing way to find the best workers. Well, when we set up also companies in China, because we wanted to manufacture some of our products in China, it just didn't, we didn't have it was too difficult to manufacture it here in the U.S. We thought, how do we do overtime in China? And when I was in China, I realized the companies that we created in China, that our workforce was, and we didn't have our own companies in China. We partnered and it's called a joint venture with Chinese companies. And I still wanted the owner of the company to run it, because he had the experience of running a company in China. But we said we wanted autonomy. We wanted to be able to go in and teach and kind of to have that complete autonomy. And he agreed. So we were in a situation where we got a big order as well, and I didn't want to have forced overtime. And the factory owner said, that's impossible. There's no way that you could get this order out without having, without overtime.
So what was a party that looked like there? We've only got like 15 seconds. What did the party look like?
Instead of doing a party, what we realized is most of the people that worked for us were 20 or in the late 20s or 30s. They had children, and they came from small villages to Shanghai, where our factories were, but they were, but they didn't. They never got to go home and see their children except twice a year, because they worked 5.5 days a week, and it was too far for them. And I thought, what if we could bank your hours, and then we could you could get several days off and you could go home and see your children. Tears came to their eyes. They were so excited. They're like, seriously?
See, that's such a cool idea. And I know that because I lived in Shanghai for a year. And you're right. They don't get enough family time. Mark, I so want to thank you for being on our show with us. This time has gone by way too quickly. Mark excels at combining his imagination and his sense of fairness in his name to grow his business. Imagination is found in the letter U, and fairness is represented in the combination AR. If you have either of those in your name, you have that too. Do you know where your genius lies? I'm Sharon Lynn Wyatt, host of the radio show, and I'm signing off.